Well, tubers, we got some junk to work on today. I got to change out a hose, and we're going to do some inspection and kind of some preventive maintenance. But before we get there, I got some stories to tell. So this is going to be hopefully the very last hurrah of this stupid GoPro camera, and I hope I never see another GoPro camera in my life. A lot of these videos that I do, especially the more in-depth machining, rebuild, blah 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 kind of videos, oftentimes will take a couple of months time span. Especially if it's not a critical weld or whatever. And the reason being is, you know, I got to come out here and take it apart, and then you haul it back to town. And, you know, for the winch truck, we usually do other winch truck stuff that day. And then, you know, you got to take it apart, do the machine work, order parts. A couple of weeks goes by, put it back together. Then it rains for a month, and, you know, y'all get the story. Well, I've got about at least 4, I think, videos already running. And every single one of them has some kind of a corrupted file. The audio's gone, the video's gone. You know, the GoPro numbers all the videos, and it will just have a number not there, a file not there, you know. And it's like, I remember what we did in that segment. Anyway, I'm pretty aggravated with GoPro. I use real high-end SanDisk brand cards, SanDisk Extreme. I don't put the cards in my pocket. They come straight out of the GoPro into my reader. I bought a different card reader. Anyway, it's got to be this stupid GoPro. So you can see a bunch of wires here on this, what we're fixing to work on. And this is sort of a, well, this least particular was a preliminary setup system. While I'm thinking about it, I better turn this pump off so we get wound up in the belt. It was where I originally set my SCADA system up. It's where I've kind of been designing it. It's almost ready to implement. I'm going to take it and put it everywhere. The biggest reason I haven't done any videos about that is because I want to have this all completely figured out before we start doing videos about it, so I don't have to back up and say, well, I changed my mind about this. That didn't work. I want this sort of figured out before we start to work on it. Another thing is we're working on this water pump, and we're going to walk down to the injection well here in just a minute. It's just about, I don't know, 100 yards that way or less. And I've had a whole bunch of people ask me about injection wells and how they work, and that's coming up soon. So on the new lease, one of the big reasons that it was so cheap and I could get it and whatever was the injection well needed a bunch of work. And I want to tell that story, and we're going to go through kind of mechanically how they work and how, you know, they don't contaminate groundwater and whatever. But that's for down the road. We're going to talk about injection wells here in a month or so. We just, you know, work on the hose on this one. We'll worry about the downhole part later. The last thing is it is, as I said, February the 27th, and we are coming into a part of the year that is optimum generally if it doesn't rain for me to work on a lot of stuff. And there's going to be probably a lot of these kind of smaller short videos. I know I'm talking a lot in this one, but we're not going to actually do much, because that's generally what I do in the spring. It's nice, it's not too hot, you know, I can sort of pick up all these little dinky projects and preventive maintenance type projects and that kind of stuff. And there's probably going to be a lot of that coming along down the pipeline. So I bought this lease. This is the first actual lease that I personally purchased in 2014. I was 25 years old. And all this stuff is from, this is all replumbed when we bought it. We come up with this tank and put this pump together. And all this hoses and stuff are 10 years old. And they are due for a change. And we've got better, newer stuff we're going to put back here. But there is a sort of a hole. These were two hoses we're trying to rub together, and this stuff needs to be looked over and changed. We're going to walk down the injection well. It is probably the same way. I dug a hole here and dug this out, and I wanted to show this before I pulled this out because this was almost a mess. So this steel ring here is a crimp where they've crimped on to the end of this hydraulic hose. You can see the crimp is rotted off. This is the hose. The only part of the steel is left is right there. One of the biggest challenges to me, or that's not the right word, one of the thing that I aspire very hard to do in the oil field is to not have leaks. I buy, you know, good stuff, brass, stainless. We don't run really any steel connections, and we work hard to make sure we don't put any fluid on the ground. And that's what a lot of this preventive maintenance type stuff is had I not looked at this probably in another year, that hose would have blown off. You know, it's no longer crimped on, it would have simply blown off. This injection well, this injection system runs around 200 psi, which is, you know, mid pressure to us, but it's relatively low pressure to a lot of people. You know, it doesn't take a lot of hose to hold 200 pounds. This hose goes down in the ground. We may try to dig that up and show you, but it turns to fiberglass. We've got fiberglass injection line laid, buried, goes under the tank all the way to the injection well. You got to bury the fiberglass. If the fiberglass lays on top of the ground, it vibrates and a rock or something will rub a hole in it. All right, I'm going to shut the suction valve here to the water pump because water will siphon through that pump. I'm not sure how full the tank is. You hear something that sounds like air, that's suction. The well is trying to suck water down it. Since we shut the valve, it can't suck any. All right, and we're going to take this off here, leave the union and everything. These stainless steel unions have got a plain steel nut here, and they work good. They last forever. They don't leak. But the problem is, once you put them together and they sit here for, you know, a year or so, these will never come apart. They are permanently affixed. Okay, so we're going to go back here. Here's a new hose with stainless steel ends instead of brass. Now, if you look at the brass here, the actual connection where the water goes, it's corrosive. Didn't hurt this part. It's just the clamp, the crimp on the outside of it here is rotted away. I can't believe this didn't blow off. If you go to stainless, this crimp here is also stainless, and so you don't have to worry about this. It's no longer a problem. You know, I talked about these stainless connections before and having trouble with them seizing together. And it's funny because literally everything that anyone suggested that I tried was better than what I had been told to use. And I have just went back from the nickel based stuff back to just plain copper coat, and I think it works much better than the stuff they sell us at the supply store that's for stainless. Okay, so the next change here for me is the use of these stainless JIC fittings. And so now we no longer have to have a union. And this doesn't cost really much more. This is pretty inexpensive than just a standard end. And it makes everything so much nicer, so much more kosher. I think I will. All right, we can put a little bit of twist on that hose to keep that hose away from the other one. I wasn't originally going to change out this hose, but I think I probably ought to. Let's go for a walk. Let's walk down to the injection well. This needs some work here. I got to dig that up. I didn't realize this is a steel connection. It's probably plastic coated. These are a thing of the past as far as I'm concerned. Of course, you can still buy them. Most people buy them. But it is not something I'm going to own. It usually eats up right here. I'm sure when we take this apart we'll be able to see it. We're going to replace all this. I got to dig up the end here, see how deep it is, and get us a measurement on a hose. Call in and get us a hose made. All right, I got all the crap ordered for this. I want special hoses with special ends. It's not normally stuff they stock. I got to make it all for me, and it's supposed to be here Thursday, and so we will meet back out here day after tomorrow and finish this up. So this is the very first time I've ever hit record on this camera, like the actual very first time. No test runs or nothing. Hope it works. I'm shooting 1080p, 30 frames. I know there's a lot higher qualities out there, but here on the Zach Life, you get what you pay for. I've got some hose and stuff and a new toy. So I had to buy Milwaukee. I went to Home Depot. They didn't have any of the good stuff. All they got's the low quality Milwaukee stuff. I wanted a Ryobi. I'm not a Milwaukee fanboy, if y'all hadn't figured that out. No, it actually seems to have good power. It's got a hot battery in it. Let me engage my safety squints here. Now this hose has got, I don't know if y'all will be able to see this, but it's got a spiral wound wire. We got to cut through that wire. And then you can pop it off there. And obviously, as I was doing that, I was trying not to cut into the brass KC. This ought to be good for another decade, I imagine. We kind of use the natural twist in the hoses to keep these apart. Let's run down to the well. All right, so I got to wreck all this stuff out. We got to get down that hole and get that unscrewed. I'm going to replace all this. This is brass, and brass does live pretty long. But I have heard, I hadn't really witnessed it so much, but I've always heard that if you mix brass and stainless, it can cause electrolysis and eat the brass up, or the stainless, or one of the two. And we're just going to go all stainless. That's kind of where I'm heading. I'm going to keep all these connections. They may get used somewhere else, but just not right here. Kind of like to get this bushing out, because if I don't do it right now, it probably ain't never going to happen. You see how this is loose? That's a pretty good indication this is probably ate up. Tell you what, since I got a new toy, I might just as well use it. Okay, so here's what I've got here. I'm gonna bring this up a foot. I've got a 1-inch extra heavy duty schedule 80 12-inch long nipple. Guarantee that sucker had never coming out of there. I want to put my union down here at the ground, so if I ever have to have this well worked on with a rig or whatever, there won't be just a hose sticking up here out of the way. Yep, out of my eye. I would say that's pretty well gone. This is typical plastic coated stuff. You can see there used to be steel that came all the way up to the edge here, and the steel has corroded and rotted away. Alright, here's what I got to replace it. This is all 316L stainless, I think. Yep, 316. 2-inch 8 round to 1-inch line pipe. These didn't used to exist. Just a few years ago, these weren't a thing. You couldn't buy them. And I actually made a bunch of these out of brass, and they work great. Prior to these, or something homemade, this was your only option. Luckily those aren't. I mean, people, you can still buy those. A lot of people still do, but I do not. They're kind of expensive, but they last forever. I mean, this will last the rest of my life. Let's look down in here. So this tube in here has got a liner in it, and if you look, you can sort of see there's a step right there. That's actually a piece of PVC that's made into it's I don't know, it's glued. I don't know how it is, but it's stuck to the inside of this. You can't take it out. And you can see this collar here is eating a little bit. You know, it is steel. You can sort of see a pit there, but it's pretty thick. It's probably close to 1/2 inch thick there in the middle. Alright, I got a gigantic 1-inch T somewhere. I don't know why I ordered this. I don't know why. I obviously didn't know what I ordered, but it's like a 5,000 or 20,000 PSI. I don't know what it is. Ultra heavy duty 1-inch T. Turn that so that the hose is nice and relaxed. I ended up with my hose a little bit longer than I probably should have got it. So I walked up to the pump, turned the pump on. It's been a few minutes. It's probably going to take a few minutes for this to fill up and pressure up. The well has probably sucked this line dry, and so it's got to fill that line up and then fill the well up. It may take a few minutes. Pressure's coming up to 100. It may actually climb up a little bit higher than it normally runs because it's got a bunch of air in the tubing and it's got to push all that air down and out into the formation. I'm gonna finish picking my tools up. Okay, I got all the dirt pushed back in the hole here. It's been about 15 minutes probably, at least 10. The pressure stabilized, it's about 220, and that's probably about where it'll stay. We're authorized, we got a permit on this well, we're authorized to inject it surface pressures up to 425 at a maximum volume of 500 barrels per day. We are well under that number. Well, everything here looks good to me. Nothing's leaking. Everything's nice and separated. Hose Cadillacing right along. I guess let's move along to something else. I'm gonna go check the rest of my leases, and I gotta go to town and get a tire for my ditch witch. Appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.